Hello everyone. Last week we did a little bit of baking. Today we have a science experiment. Now, I have got two different types of liquid, okay? So this is a blue one and this is a nice sort of golden yellow one. Now, what I'm going to do is put them together and I want you to guess what you think is going to happen. So maybe you know about mixing colours and you know what might happen when we mix blue and this lovely yellow colour. Okay, let's see if we're right. Well, do you know what has happened? They didn't mix together at all. This one is sitting above the other. It's separate, it's set apart from the other. The reason for this is that they're both different types of liquid that don't mix together. And even if I stirred them round, they wouldn't mix. This one would always be set apart from this one. We've got to the letter H today. Have a listen to this verse from the book of Isaiah. Can you hear the word beginning with H that we're going to use to describe God? And one called to another and said, Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The whole earth is full of his glory. Did you hear it? Yes, the word is holy. God is holy. We didn't just hear it once or twice. We heard it 3 times. Now, if you were writing something today and you wanted to show how important a word was, you might underline it. But in the times when the Bible was written, if the writer wanted to show how important something was, they repeated it. And you can see, because we have the word holy written 3 times in this verse, we can see just how important it is and just how holy our God is. Now, holy means separate, set apart. We saw what separate meant when we looked at our 2 liquids. There was one that was separate from the other. Our God is separate, set apart from all things. He is above all things, but it means more than that. He is perfect. There is no one as good or as mighty or as powerful as God. He is perfect. He has never sinned. But the Bible tells us that we all have sinned, and our sin separates us from him. In the book of Exodus in the Old Testament, we read of how Moses went to the top of Mount Sinai and there God gave him the 10 commandments. God also gave him some instructions. God wanted Moses and the people to build a special type of tent called a tabernacle. Now, at this time, the children of Israel were travelling through the desert on the way to a very special place that God had promised to give them. Sometimes we call it the Promised Land. Now, this wasn't a short journey. This journey would take 40 years. And during that time, the people lived in tents. So God gave Moses this really detailed set of instructions of how to build this special type of tent called a tabernacle, because this was where God would dwell or live among his people. Every time the people would pack up their tents and move on, the tabernacle would also be packed up and moved with them. The tabernacle was split into 3 parts: the outer court, the holy place, and the Holy of Holies. And there were special rules about who could go into those places. The most special place was the Holy of Holies, because that is where God's presence was. That's where God lived among his people. There was a really big, beautiful curtain that separated the holy place from the Holy of Holies. And on only one day in the year, one person was allowed to go into the Holy of Holies, and that was a man called the high priest. He had a very special job. There was only one day he was able to go in there. And he went in there to offer a sacrifice so that the sins of all the people of Israel would be forgiven. Nobody else was allowed in there because their sin kept them away from God. They needed someone else to go to God for them. They couldn't go by themselves. The tabernacle was a bit like a signpost pointing to the time when God would come to live among his people in the person of Jesus. A long time after the children of Israel had reached the Promised Land, they had a building called a temple where they could go to worship God. And in that temple, there was a very big curtain between the holy place and the Holy of Holies, just like there had been in the tabernacle. And the Bible tells us that when Jesus died, that curtain was torn in 2. But it wasn't torn in two from the bottom. It was torn in two from the top. And because of the size of this curtain, that would have been impossible for a person, but not impossible for God. This wasn't an accident. The curtain in the temple was torn to show that because of what Jesus has done for us by dying on the cross, we don't have to be kept away from God. We can have our sins forgiven. We don't need someone else to go to talk to God for us. We can come to him ourselves. Now, I want you to imagine this as us and our sin. It doesn't look very clear and pure, does it? No. Jesus is the only one who has never sinned, and that's why he is the only one that can rescue us from our sin. Jesus came to earth to live among us. He died on a cross to take the punishment for my sin and your sin, and he rose again and is alive today in heaven. And if we ask God to forgive our sin, if we're really sorry for the wrong things that we have thought and said and done, he will forgive us. And not only that, he will forgive our sin. He will take the clear, pure record of Jesus. Now, I need to give this a stir. And he will give that pure, clear record to us. It's pretty amazing, isn't it? So that whenever God looks at us, he doesn't treat us as our sin deserves, but he treats us just like Jesus, pure and without sin. We can know our sins are forgiven, and we can know that we have a home someday in heaven with him forever. Now it's time to get those posters updated. Remember, today's lesson is God is holy. He is set apart. He is perfect. But because of what Jesus has done for us, we can have our sins forgiven and be part of God's family. What amazing news!